Welcome to the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavallaey. Today we are doing our special Champions League preview show, previewing the new Champions League season. We'll be explaining the new Champions League format, which sees 36 teams in the group stage, all taking part in one big league table. We'll go through and analyse all the squads, fixtures and chances for our Serie A teams in the Champions League. 5 of them altogether this season: Inter, the champions; Milan, Juventus; Europa League champions, Atalanta; and surprise qualifiers, Bologna. We'll offer our predictions for all the teams and for the competition as a whole. You can listen to this show on all of our podcast apps as usual, but you can also watch us on YouTube. You can see our faces. But before we start, just a reminder to everyone that if you want to become a patron and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including our Monday review show, our Tuesday Q&A, our midweek Thursday review show, plus post-match reaction and interviews and much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just a month. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube now, please hit the subscribe button and give us a like. It really helps us to do more quality content for you guys. Okay then, Nima. So let's start off first with a little explain of how the new Champions League season will work, because it's all different this season. It's been revolutionized. It's the first season in the new format of the league. So until this season, there's been 32 teams in the group stage, divided into eight groups of 4. The top 2 qualified for the last 16, and then it was home and away knockout ties till the one-off final. The new format, which comes into being, is there will now be 36 teams in the group stage, up from 32, so 4 more teams. But the way that it is different is each team will play 8 matches in the group stage against 8 different teams. 4 of these matches will be at home, 4 of them away, but there will no longer be home and away matches. So it's 8 different opponents. Each opponent will be faced only once. So 2 extra matches in the group stage, 8 matches up from 6. The draw for the group stage, which divided these 36 teams into 8 pots. So they were still and the way that the draw worked is that teams could only play teams from the same league as theirs in the group stage, and more than 2 opponents from one league, and they drew 2 teams from each pot. So that's how the draw worked. How the group works is, again, until this season, each team was placed in a 4-team group. You would play the 3 opponents home and away. Total of top 2 would qualify. Third place would go through would drop down to the Europa League. This time around, each team plays 8 matches, but the points earned from these 8 matches they go into a 36-team league table, and the teams are ranked from 1st to 36 based on the points earned from these 8 matches. So how does qualification work? Well, the top 8 teams in this 36-team league table will qualify automatically for the last 16 knockout stage. The teams that are finishing in 9th to 24th place will qualify for the last 32, where they will play a home and away knockout tie. The team who finish 9th to 16th will be seeded for this last 32 draw, and the teams that finish 17th to 24th seeded. Then the winners of these last 32 ties will join the teams who finish 1st to 8th in the league table in the last 16 of the Champions League. I hope that's all clear so far. And then from there will be the 2-legged quarter final, and then a one-off final to decide who is the Champions League winner. The final this year is being played in Munich. The teams who finished 25th to 36th in the 36-team league table will be eliminated from Europe altogether, and there will be no dropping down to the Europa League. As I said, as has been the case in the previous seasons for teams that finished third in their 14 groups. The other change to the format is there will be no mid-season break in the Champions League this season. So until now, there's always been a break from December to February, a 2.5 month, 2 to 2.5 month break. That break was between the groups and the knockouts. This season, the matches will continue to be played through December and January into February, with the knockouts again beginning in February. So no break this year. It's non-stop every single, throughout the season, basically, until the end of the season. Okay, so that explainer. I hope that wasn't too complicated. But first of all, Nima, before we go through the Italian teams, let me ask you first. Do you like the new format? What do you think of the new format?
Before we begin, I have to say I'm wearing a t-shirt that our patron Art Morelli made, a tribute to Sopranos, which if you listen to the last pod we did where his little shop was nuked by Juventus legal team, I felt I had to represent him today. I have to say I like this. I like this format. I think it was time for a change. I was a little bit skeptical going into it, but when I saw the draw, and the way that they drawed it and the way that they showed it out, and first of all, they made the draw 100 times better, because I hated watching people opening up balls. It's just boring. It was absolutely boring to watch. This was much more exciting. It made it like you wanted to watch it until the end. And I like the format. I like that it's not just groups. I like that everyone can play anyone. I mean, within certain, there's certain restrictions in place, but I like the format. I like the group stage format. I like that it's not home and away. I like that it's one-off, 8 games, and then the top 8 go to the round of 16. The others, you're in the middle. You have to play a game to reach that. I think the competition needed it. This was good for the competition, in my opinion. I'm just strictly looking at the Champions League from a Champions League perspective. I think it's good. I think it was a freshening that it needed, an update that it needed, because it was starting to feel stale. But of course, there are negative side effects that they're not addressing, and that is more games every 3 days, players getting burned out, and so on and so forth.
I think that from the positive point of view, there's more money for the teams, more matches against more teams, because there's 8 different opponents. So, like you said, you're seeing more diversity. You're seeing lots more games between teams. That's sometimes you don't get to see those matches, and from a financial point of view, it's good for the clubs. From a negative point of view, I think the biggest negative is there's too many games for players already as it is, and now we're adding another 2 to 4 matches a season, plus all the extra travelling. You've got the Club World Cup also at the end of the season, which is, it's just going to be exhausting for the player. There's no break at all in the season at all. There's not going to be a break virtually, maybe a few weeks before pre-season starts in the 2025-26 season, and then at the end of that 2025-26 season, you're going to have the World Cup. And we saw in the Euros the level of the quality of the football was general, with the exception of maybe Spain. It was really bad football. Players looked exhausted. There was no energy, no intensity, and also there's obviously the injury situation. And we as an Italian football podcast, and Italian football, the number of injuries at the moment is ridiculous. Number of ACL injuries, the number of and the number of games is playing a massive role in that. So I think that is something that is a big concern. It's obvious to me why this new format was brought in, and that is as a reaction to the Super League, because the Super League was really for financial reasons more than anything, and control and power, but financial reasons, they wanted more money, the big clubs. So this is a way of compromising a little bit for that. So yeah, I mean, some good and some bad, and but it's good, I think, because we're going to see more matches against more opponents, and that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, it's like it depends on the perspective you have. From the perspective of just the Champions League, I think this was a freshening up of things was long overdue. It was getting stale, and the group stages just felt so boring. Now it does feel more exciting, and also the knockout stage as well. So I think from that perspective it's positive. But like you said, again, more matches, more games, more pressure on the players. And I think the only way to get around that is to increase the squad sizes. That's the only thing. We have to have an increase of squad sizes. From they have to give more leeway for wages, because I think we need to have somewhere like 25, 27 players, like first team players now, because it's just not going to be enough, because between international football, between club football, and an 11-month season for teams that are participating in the Club World Cup, it's just 10-11-month season. That's insane. So we're going to need bigger squads, because these 23, 24 guys just can't handle it. Can you just imagine if Juve and Inter go far in the Champions League after having gone far in the Coppa Italia, played the Supercoppa, played 38 games in the Serie A? Do you have any? Can you just imagine how Lautaro and Vlahovic are going to look in June, July when they reach the champion? They're going to be exhausted, absolutely exhausted, and the quality is going to suffer as a result, and we're going to have more injuries. So I do think that this, I understand they want to play more games, but then they have to increase the sizes of the squads. It's that simple. You can't have one or the other. You need to increase them.
Yeah, for sure. But that also brings on added problems as well. Do certain teams and squads have the resources to have bigger squads? And if they do, what will the quality be like? And does that just benefit the big clubs even more? And then then there's the problem with training. And any coach, trying to train a squad of 20 or 30 players. I mean, look at Chelsea.
I was just about to say, look at Chelsea. Look at Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea are showing that.
Yeah, possible. Okay, well let's work our way now through the Italian teams and break down their teams, the group. Well, I'm going to say the group, but it's not a group anymore. Their opponents that they'll be playing, and let's see ultimately how well each of the Italian teams do. So starting with Inter, let's start with the group. Or again, I'm going to have to get used to not saying that. Let's have a look at their opponents. There are 8 opponents they'll be playing. So in date order of when they're playing. Manchester City to start with. Then Red Star Belgrade, Young Boys, Arsenal, Leipzig, Leverkusen, Sparta Prague, and finishing off against Monaco. What do you think of that draw for Inter? Is that a good draw? A bad draw?
I think it's quite a tough draw. I mean, Arsenal and City is the 2 best teams in the Premier League, so that's not going to be easy. But then you also have Leverkusen and Leipzig, which I think are tricky. I think it's going to be tricky. So no, there's not much margin of error here to finish in the top 8. So yeah, no, it's I think it's a tricky draw. I mean, it could have been easier. Let's put it that way. Leipzig and Leverkusen. I mean, Leverkusen reigning German champions, double champions. They won the double last season. Your City, and Arsenal. So, and Leipzig, who are a tricky side. So no, I think this is a very tricky draw. It's not easy at all.
No, it's. I mean, Inter have to win those gimmies, the games against Red Star, Young Boys, and Sparta Prague. Those are non-negotiable, and then they're probably going to need. I mean, I think if you get 4 wins, you're probably going to qualify for. You're going to qualify for the last 32, but then it depends. Yeah, if you if you want to try and get into that top 8. And then you're going to have to start winning some of those bigger matches. Let's look at Inter squad. Just to be clear, UEFA rules state that a maximum of 25 can be included on the A list, and 8 of those. When I say A list, that's basically players. Let's just to simplify it, that's basically players. Let's call it that. 8 of those must be locally trained or homegrown, and at least 4 must be association trained, which means come through the club's academy. So I'm not going to read out the entire Inter squad. And the points of note are that Thomas Palacios, the new signing, and Joaquin Correa have been left out, but Buchanan is in despite his long injury absence. If we look at the probable 11 that Inter, well, I'm going to say probable 11. I'm going to say strongest 11, and this won't necessarily be the team that will play the first game, but it's the team that generally we would call the strongest team. So we're looking at Sommer in goal, 3-5-2 formation, Pavard, Acerbi, and Bastoni as centre backs, Damian Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, Di Marco across the midfield, and then Thuram and Lautaro up front. So where are the strengths? What are Inter's strengths, would you say, based on the squad, the team, and in general?
Continuity. It's a group of players where all the important pieces have stayed, extended, pledged their future to the project, under a manager who knows them really well and who they enjoy working with and who they follow. Unity. They're very united. They believe in what they do. There's clarity and continuity, like I said, and there's very clear roles as to how they play and who does what and when. And the fact that Inter they now have the experience, having won as much as they've won in Italy, but also having played two European finals, Europa League and Champions League. Most of these players were there for both of those. So, so there's the experience, the pedigree. They are, like I said, continuity. They know each other really well. The tactical continuity, but also, I think it's a team that is so difficult to defend against because Inter can hurt you in very many different ways. They just, it's, if you defend, if you want to, they can attack you playing calcio verticale, Conte's calcio verticale. They know how to do that. They can defend, they can beat you by playing Inzaghi's favored horizontal, vertical, expansive triangles where they pull you out of position, and they themselves have positional shifts that's like a dance. You have Acerbi going up to central, as a number 9, Lautaro dropping as a midfielder, Barella going out wide. I mean, it's just it's a dance. They swarm teams in the final third, and they're defensively solid. They're a team that knows how to defend. So they are a very complete team tactically and qualitatively. And now they also have depth in attack, something they didn't last season. So for me, I know that Inter are looking at, they wouldn't say it themselves outwardly, but they are prioritizing this Champions League because they fancy their chances to go on and win it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the quality is there. As you said, very complete. The experience is there, and that's important. This is a team that's been to the Champions League final, and that gives them pedigree, but also gives them a hunger and a will for revenge, to try and to try and go one step further. And once you've had a taste of success, even if it wasn't quite success, then that you want it more. And for that reason, I think that it's the team. In terms of weaknesses, though, Nima, if there is something that could hold them back in this Champions League, the defense starting to age a little bit, could that be the biggest banana skin, maybe?
Yes, because Francesco Acerbi isn't getting any younger, and I think already last season I saw some signs of decline. Stefan de Vrij isn't, even though he's improved compared to two seasons ago, he's not the player he once was when he was named the Serie A Defender of the Year. So the central backs, the central defense is aging, and that is a problem. But they have kind of begun to address that with Tomas Palacios coming, obviously not for the Champions League, but he's a player they believe in for the future. He's very big. He's very tall. Bastoni, we've seen for Italy, can play there. So they have started to address it. But this season in the Champions League, it's going to be Acerbi, potentially Jan Bisek, the young German defender who's been very good since joining Inter last season. So that is a weakness, yes. Because when that decline begins, it goes off a cliff. It's not gradual. You can see it. We've seen it with Handanovic. We saw it with de Vrij. I'm wondering, can Acerbi do it for one more season? And that's the key here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also say I wouldn't call this a weakness, but I would say it's something that Simone Inzaghi probably needs to look at himself. Is that I'm adamant that Inzaghi being too pragmatic was one of the reasons that cost Inter. I mean, I remember when Inter went out against Atletico Madrid, we did a really big pod where we broke down about 8 or 9 reasons why they went out, and all of those played a part in Inter's exit. One of the biggest reasons for me was Inzaghi being too pragmatic in that second leg in Madrid, where he basically just defended and tried to counter-attack. I want to see an Inter that when they are in those situations again this season, they are more front-footed and they don't sit back, especially against teams who they are better than. If it's a team that is on their level and you're away, or that is better than them, like a Man City, then that's understandable. But I can't accept that against better than. So I think that's something that Inzaghi needs to try and correct this season. And the other thing is, if we're talking about a weakness, is that also I think that Inter missed a big chance last season when I think it was one of the weakest Champions Leagues that there has been. Time with the Premier League teams really not being of particularly good quality at all in last season's competition, whereas I think this season 3 of the 4 English teams, Arsenal, Liverpool, as well as obviously Man City, are all going to be very, very strong. They're going to be all going to be really top teams, and that's going to make it much, much more difficult to go and win the competition. Whereas that wasn't the case last season. It really was just City that I think were real contenders from the Premier League teams. So that is a bit of that's something extra that I think that a team like Inter, who has ambitions to win the Champions League, that's an extra hurdle, or 2 extra hurdles they'll have to overcome, that will make it more difficult to win it this season.
I think the most important. No, just before we get to that, just one thing though. Inzaghi last season, he didn't get his rotations right from the offset. It's incredibly imperative for him to get his rotations right, to get his squad rotation right. He has lots of options. He didn't have as many, you could say, in attack last season, but he does have them this season, and he needs to utilize it wisely. He needs to keep everybody fresh. He can't have Fratesi and Zielinski rotting on the bench. He just can't have that. Or Aslani rotting on the bench. He needs to trust them. And Inter don't have starters. They like to say, we don't have starters. We have 24 players all competing for 11 spots, all good as almost as good as one another. Well, he needs to show that he understands that he can rotate properly, because that's been something that has been a bit of a weakness as Inzaghi. I disagree a little bit about the pragmatism of last season against Atletico Madrid. I think Inter created more than enough chances in both legs to win 4-5-0. But the problem was the depth. Arnautovic missed 3 sitters, scored 1. Thuram was injured for the first game, came back for the second, wasn't exactly the same Thuram that we see when he's fully fit, and missed quite a few sitters as well. So I think it's more down to that. I need an Inter to be cynical in the Italian sense of the word in football when in those decisive moments in the knockout stages of the Champions League, and I need Inzaghi to get his rotations right between League and the Champions League.
And Lautaro especially needs to step up.
Yes.
He needs to step up.
Lautaro needs to. This is make or break a little bit for Lautaro. This is his Inter. He's shown it domestically. He's done it for Argentina. Now it's for him to show that he can do it for Inter in the Champions League. He has scored important goals, big game. He's a big game player, but he hasn't scored enough and as consistently in Europe's top competition, and he knows that. So I think he will be focused on the Champions League more than the Serie A this season, which is also why I have Thuram. Which is also why I have Thuram scoring 20 goals in the Serie A and not him.
Okay, right. Prediction time. So we'll do two predictions. First of all, group stage, and then overall. So starting off with the group stage, I'll go first. I'm sure Inter will qualify. Certainly, I think they're going to be in the top 24. There's no doubt, little doubt about that in my mind. Top 16, I'm pretty confident that they will get in the top 16, which would mean being seeded for the last 32 draw. Whether they can get in the top 8, I mean, I think it's difficult to get in that top 8. You need to, you need to have a really good, really good. You need to win probably five or six of your 8 being in that top 8, and that's not easy. So I think that the Arsenal and Leverkusen games will decide whether Inter can be in that top 8. Because the Man City game, I think it's obviously going to be very difficult, but it won't be decisive for me. So I'm going to say top 16 for Inter.
I have them somewhere 8, 9, 10, somewhere there. But yeah, for the sure top 16. But 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere there in the group stage, or the league stage, we should rather say.
Yeah. Yes. Overall, so where are Inter going to finish altogether in this Champions League? I have quarterfinal, semi-final. Semi-final.
Minimum has to be quarterfinal. They have to reach the quarterfinal this season. But from then on, it's the luck of the draw, isn't it? I mean, it depends who you face and where who you face and where you are, and injuries and stuff like that. But minimum quarterfinal for sure. They have to go there. They have to reach that. It would be a failure otherwise.
It certainly would. Let's move on though to Milan. See Milan. First of all, their 8 opponents. So we have Liverpool in order: Bayer Leverkusen, Club Brugge, Real Madrid, Slovan Bratislava, Red Star Belgrade, Girona, and Dinamo Zagreb. I think this is a really, really good draw for Milan. Yes, they have Liverpool at home, Bayer Leverkusen away, Real Madrid away. So that's 3 really, really, really tough opponents. But I mean, I look at their other 5 games. I mean, Dinamo Zagreb, Red Star Belgrade, Slovan Bratislava, Club Brugge at home. I mean, you couldn't handpick 4 better opponents, really. And then Girona at home, a Girona team who have lost most of their best from last season. I mean, I think that in terms of qualification, there's no excuse whatsoever. I mean, it'll be a huge failure if Milan can't. Not only if Milan can't qualify, but they should be getting into the top 16 at the minimum with the draw that they've got. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Not only that, I'd say they have a good shot with this draw to finish in the top 8. I mean, I think, okay, Leverkusen, Real Madrid, Liverpool, fantastic teams, but the rest, that's 15 points. They have to get a minimum 15 points because those other 5 teams are just, they're not as good as Milan. They're just not. And so they need 15 points from there. So, and then you look at Liverpool, Real Madrid. Okay, Real Madrid, I don't expect anyone to, it's Real Madrid. You can't count on anything. But I'm not as sold on Liverpool as people are. I think they're a good side, but I'm not as sold on them as they are. I think they're going to, I don't see them challenging for the Champions League or the Premier League trophy this season. I think this is a little bit of a transitional year for them. But Leverkusen is going to be tricky as hell. So I think 17, 18 points is the target. And if they get that, well, out of a 24, they should be in contention for top 8 even.
I agree. I agree completely. Look at Milan's squad, or their probable 11. From their squad, the big absentee is Jovic. and he was replaced by Tammy Abraham. He was a late signing. Other than that, not too much really to note from Milan's squad. Other than they've got a lot of really talented youngsters who will be on the B list. The B list allows you to pick players who are underage players. Kind of, I'm not sure what's the actual age. I think is it under 21? I think.
I think so.
I will confirm that when we get to Juventus, because I did make a note, because Juventus have got quite a few players officially on their B list. But they've got players like Kamada, Liberali, Zeroli, these kind of players from their Milan Futuro team, who are very talented players who could also be used if desperate. So Milan have a big squad, a deep squad, but their probable 11, or again their best 11, is Mike Maignan. In a 4-2-3-1, it would be Emerson or Calabria. Then in the centre of defence, Tomori and Pavlovic, or Tomori and Thiaw, and then Theo Hernandez at left back. The two holding midfielders we're probably looking at Fofana, the new signing from Monaco, and Reinders. And then the three trequartisti, Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, and Rafael Leao. And then Alvaro Morata as the lone striker. So Nima, again, what do we see as Milan's strengths from their squad, from their team, and in general?
I think it's similar to Inter in the sense that this is a group of players that have been together for quite some time. They know each other really well. The additions that have come in, like Tammy Abraham, Morata, they suit that football. They're very mobile, dynamic players, and Milan want to play a very modern, dynamic, movement-based football and high-intensity football, high press. So I think they're a very cohesive side. The question mark for me, which we'll get to, is whether or not Paulo Fonseca can get them to understand what he wants them to do, which is a separate thing. But I think the draw looks good for them, like we've been through. And also, of course, you have match winners like Theo, like Leao, like Morata, who can win games on their own. And that's important in these big competitions and big games. Leao has a talent that is golden. His talent is diamond. But the problem has been with him, of course, is that he can't seem to make it show it as consistently and often as we would like, and Milan fans would like, because unfortunately he's not at that level yet. I still think he can be, and I hope that this could be the season for him in Europe where he shows off exactly what a diamond he is. Theo, one of the best left back, if not amongst the best left backs in the world, fullbacks in the world on the left side, is unbelievable. Morata, incredible experience, leadership. So, and Reinders, I think, is going to be kind of a standout player this season, a breakout player for the more neutrals. Is a very important player. So, no, they have a cohesive unit. They have a cohesive team that knows each other well. The issues for me is, can Fonseca get them to understand what it is he wants them to do?
Yeah, I think that from the strengths, in terms of strengths, the group, they've got a great draw, as we've been through already. But they do have individuals that can rise to the big occasion. Like the likes of Rafael Leao, Theo Hernandez, these players, they love the big stage. And so that's always a chance. But I also think that they have decent experience as well in their team. I mean, they had the run to the Champions League semi-final a couple of years ago. But if you actually look through their squad, they've got players who have been on the big stage and played these big tournaments and big matches. Maignan, Tomori, Pulisic, there's a lot of experience. Chelsea, Borussia Dortmund at this stage. Loftus-Cheek, going back to his Chelsea days. Rafael Leao now has built up good experience. And Morata, of course, I mean, one of the most experienced players, has won it all everywhere, for all the biggest teams in Europe. Chelsea, Juventus, Real Madrid. So, I mean, that is important in the Champions League, and that gives them that will definitely give them something extra. I think. Weaknesses, though, Nima, is we're recording this at a time when, but we're recording this before Milan's last leg before their first Champions League match against Liverpool. And as we were recording, Milan are in a crisis at the moment. 2 points from their first 3 games in Serie A, but even more so, the dressing room problems. Rafael Leao, Theo Hernandez incident, which everybody knows about now, where they refused to allegedly refused, but I mean, look, everybody saw it, to come over and join the rest of the squad for a cooling break in the game against Lazio. Just stood on the other side of the pitch by themselves as a alleged form of protest against being dropped by Paulo Fonseca. And the squad, those 2 players in particular, are getting a hammering at the moment. The environment, it doesn't seem to be great at the moment. And the team are playing terrible. Tactically, they don't seem to understand what Fonseca wants. They're conceding a lot of goals and so many chances. I mean, it's a mess at the moment at Milan, and there's big pressure on Fonseca. If they were to lose their opening game against Liverpool, and then they play Inter a few days later in the derby, I mean, Fonseca really does risk the sack. So this is a Milan team that there is a lot of pressure on them.
There's question marks, but for me, the question marks are more around Fonseca and his ability to get this team to work the way he wants it to work, like I said in my previous point, than it is, I think, of Milan as a team. I don't think there's very many question marks around Milan in terms of what they are and who they are. The question maybe be as to how high they can finish in the Serie A, and are they a Scudetto contender? I'm not quite sure they're there yet, but I do think that they are in terms of who they are and how they want to play, that they're a very modern, high intensity, possession based, fluid team. My issue rests squarely with Fonseca, which is doubts I've had about him since he was appointed, and even before that, after his tenure at Roma. And I have question marks around him and the solidity defensively, and also in terms of, can he get this Milan team to understand what he wants them to do, and does he have the players to execute that football, especially in the defensive phase? I'm not sure. I'm not saying they do. I'm not saying they don't. I think it's a big question mark. And I do think he's risking a sack. Yes, I do think he's risking a sack. I don't think Milan will, sack him just like that, because it would also make they would also show that they themselves, that the people in charge, have made a huge F up. And I'm not too sure they're willing to concede that too easily. But you get hammered by Liverpool, if they get hammered in the derby, and this rut continues, they don't win against Venezia. I mean, we're recording this before the Venezia game. We could very much have a situation where Fonseca is sacked. But the problem is, there's so many games every 3 days before the next international break. Who do you appoint? Do you just bring Pioli back because he's under contract, isn't he? So, I mean, what do you do? So it can potentially get really ugly. But my question marks are not about the dressing room. I think Leao and Theo, and I think they've resolved all that internally. It wasn't a good look, don't get me wrong, but I think they've resolved it. My issue is Fonseca and the team. Can he get them to do what they want, what he wants them to do? And are they able to? That's where I have my question marks, tactically.
Yeah, if we look at the team in terms of individuals, I think there are still some gaps in the team. I think right back is the biggest problem area. Calabria, and as a number of people have said, Milan managed to go out and sign a player for 20 million, who is a downgrade on Calabria in Emerson Royale. I mean, time will tell if that is the case. But having watched Emerson Royale at Tottenham for a number of years, then I'm not a fan. I haven't been a fan of the player. I think the balance in centre midfield continues to be a bit of an issue as well. I think that has been a problem as Nima gets his vape out. And, um,
This
but
is this is what I hate about doing videos, because when we're doing audios, I can sit and like just when I get my vape out and
I
think,
didn't
look
even know
the
you
other way.
vaped. I didn't even know you vaped. How long have
Yeah,
you been
don't do it,
vaping for?
kids. Bad. Don't
Yeah.
do it, kids.
How
Bad
long
for
have you
you.
been vaping for?
Well, for a while.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think. Listen, I think the balance in centre midfield is a bit of an issue. We've seen that. We saw Musa come out after the second game when they lost to Parma and said that we don't know, we still don't understand when to press and when to sit back. Which is very concerning that he said comments like that. And so I think that has been an issue ever since Tonali left. Actually, the balance in centre midfield between even as a unit, I don't think that Milan have a great centre midfield unit working as a team. Working as a team in general has been a problem for Milan for quite a while. They don't play as a team. They don't play. They don't have units. The defensive unit as a back four, the central midfield working as partnerships over the field. They're
Yeah.
especially centrally. That is a problem.
Fragmented. I agree with that. It's a bit
Yeah,
fragmented. It's like three different parts of the team. Not what I know what you mean. I agree with that. I think the defense works just the defense, but the cooperation with the central midfield sometimes looks a bit like they're two different areas of departments at a company trying to communicate, and they can't. And that is a problem.
yeah, and inconsistency as well. I mean, that has been a problem for Milan. Like, they can pull out a great performance, and then just they're a team that I feel like you can never bank on. Haven't been able to bank on for quite a while, Milan, and that's always a concern when we look at some of these weaker opponents that we think on paper they should be sweeping away, but who knows? But let's do the prediction now, though, Nima, to finish off Milan. First of all, I think they will qualify. I think that they've got such a good draw. It seems impossible for them not to qualify, even with Fonseca. Even if Fonseca's struggling, and they continue to struggle in Serie A, I think they'll qualify. Top 16, I really think they should be qualifying in the top 16, looking at this draw, so they're at least seeded for the knockouts. But I, like you, I think with a bit of luck, top 8 should be achievable. It should be achievable. I'm not saying they'll get it, but it's there for them to take.
That's exactly it, and it's a little bit reminiscent, like, of last season, in the sense that last season they were in the group of death. But if you look at those 6 games, performance by performance, I maintain that they should have won that group. I thought Milan were good enough to win that group. They lost. They didn't go through. But in my opinion, if they had had a little bit of more killer instinct in decisive moments, they could have won that group. And here they have an easier group. It's there for the taking, is the analogy I'm making. It was there for the taking last season when they went into all of those games. Here it absolutely is there for the taking. I'm looking at Milan. I look at these games. I'm saying minimum. The 15 points have to be in the bank. Then if they can get another 2-3 points, that's 18. That puts them in contention to finish in the top 8 even, which is where I have them.
Yeah, 18 points top 8, I think. If you get 18 points, you'll be top 8, I think. Overall, though, where do you think Milan? How far do Milan go?
Well, since I have them in the top 8, they should be getting an easier draw in the round of last 16, so quarterfinal.
Okay, I'm going to go last 16. I'm going to say last 16 finish. But as always, it depends on the draw, doesn't it? In the knockouts. Let's move to Juventus now. Juventus's 8 opponents. They have starting in PSV, Leipzig, Stuttgart, Lille, Aston Villa, Manchester City, Club Brugge, and Benfica. So this is an interesting draw. This is for me because there's 2 ways of looking at this for Juventus. First of all, you can look at it and you can say, well, there's only really, really tough team in that, and that is Manchester City, of course, at home on December the 11th. The other way of looking at it is, apart from Club Brugge, there's no gimmies like there was in the Milan group with the likes of Red Star and Dinamo Zagreb, and these kind of level teams. There's no gimmies. So every game that I think that the Juventus will play, they'll have to play to win. They can't just turn up and just have an easy win. So it depends how you want to look at this. I think if Juventus play a good group stage, that's the kind of draw that on paper gives them a chance to even potentially pay. But it's also the kind of group where if they have a bad group stage, they could even end up not qualifying because every single game is there's no gimmies there. I think apart from Club Bruges. So is that the way that you would look at it?
No, I think they have one outstanding opponent in City, two tricky ones in Leipzig and Aston Villa. Eindhoven and Brugge, they should beat easily. Lille and Stuttgart, I mean, with all due respect to Lille and Stuttgart, they should overcome that. I mean, you can't net spend the way that Juventus have and tell me that they shouldn't, well, potentially have 6 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss in this game, with this group of run of fixtures. Because, I mean, again, Leipzig is tricky, Villa is tricky, but I do think Juventus have enough quality to overcome them. City can't really, City are City, but the rest, they're all winnable games. Okay, there are no gimmies, or there are no, joke teams, so if you want to, whatever you want to call it, but they're all beatable. And I don't think you can. I mean, I look at the quality of Juve, the quality that they've brought in. They have to have 6 wins here. I just can't draw away against Aston Villa because that's a difficult. Villa Park is a difficult place to go. But other than that, 6 wins, 1 draw. That's what I'm expecting from you.
Yeah, I'll come on afterwards when we look at strengths and weaknesses. Why I think this will be more difficult for Juventus than maybe on paper it seems. Juventus squad, there's no sort of players left out other than Kostic, who is in negotiations as we're recording to leave the club to go to Turkey.
Fenerbahce just released a statement.
Fenerbahce
just released a statement saying they're essentially in advanced talks with him.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so apart from Kostic, everybody else that's at the club, even Arthur Melo is in the squad. So there's no real surprises with the squad. But as I said before, list B, there are a number of youngsters, talented youngsters that have been included in the list B. So just to clarify on that, as I mentioned before with Milan, clubs can name an unlimited number of players on their B list as long as they are born on or later than January the 1st, 2020. Sorry, January the 1st, 2003. They'll be very young, 2023.
3-year-olds running around on the pitch.
As long as books for an uninterrupted period of 2 years. That means that next-gen graduates like Yildiz, Samuel, and Bangula can be on the B list, which provides for more space for players on this day. So on list B, Juventus have included Yildiz, Savona, Ruhi, and Mbangula, who have all played for the first team this season. So that's the squad. Probable 11 or best 11. Di Gregorio, right back. I think it will be Kalulu eventually. Will become the starting right back. But at the moment, it's been Savona that's played there. Cambiasso has also played there as well. The centre backs, I think, will be Gatti and Bremer, but there's a chance that Kalulu could play as a centre back next to Bremer as well. And then on the left back, it will be Cambiasso or Cabal. Well, those will be the left back choices. In centre midfield, lots of options. This is Juventus' strongest area of the pitch. So Thuram and Douglas Luiz, I think eventually, once they've bedded in, will be the first choice centre midfielders. But there is, of course, Fagioli and Locatelli as options as well. Then on the right wing, it's really out of Gonzalez and Chico Conceição. And then the number 10 or the AMC will be Koopmeiners. And then the left winger, Yildiz. And up front, it is Dusan Vlahovic. So if we start with Juventus's strengths, I've already gone through the group about why I think it could be good, it could be not so good, but certain the other strengths, if we're looking at the squad and the players, The midfield, for sure. Very, very strong midfield. I think it's one of the stronger midfields in Europe. If we look at the whole, the depth as well. It's not just Thuram, Douglas Luiz, Cook Miners. There's also Locatelli, there's Charlie, and then, Arthur Melo, McKennie is 6th and 7th choice is not bad for 6th and 7th choice. So, and even Yasser can come into midfield. So the midfield is very, very strong. They've got an excellent midfield. They've done great work on the market with the midfield. That's number one. Number two is the Thiago Motta. Thiago Motta, of course, is one of the most talented young coaches in all of Europe. What he did with Bologna last season was absolutely magnificent. You can see that this is a very, very special coach. Plays modern football, wants to dominate the possession and the territory, which is conducive generally to success in Europe. Teams that are front-footed generally do better today in modern times. So I think Motta will be very, very useful as well. And I think the enthusiasm also of being back in Europe is good for Juventus. The fact that they were out of Europe last season, and this is a chance of revenge. They've been bad in Europe for a while, and they want to prove themselves. The crowd are back with them as well now that there's a new manager. So that enthusiasm, I think, will help. What else do you see as going in Juventus's favour this season in the Champions League?
I agree with everything you said. The only thing I want to add is they have a structural defensive solidity put in place by Thiago Motta, which is crazy. They barely concede shots on goal. So far, I mean, it's still a small sample size, but so far we've seen them barely concede shots on goal, much less goals. They're very, very structurally sound defensively. Thiago Motta is pragmatic in the sense that he has an identity going forward, but he's not crazy. He doesn't go gung ho. He's very solid. It is safety first, but it's just that he also has a very modern solutions when attacking as well. And he's very calm, very cool, very controlled, very old school Juventus, the way that Juventus talk about lo stile Juve, the traditional Juventus. This kind of all is well, stay calm, keep calm, let's just focus on what we're doing, systematic approach. And that is, I really think that they are going to be a difficult side to break down. I think Juventus, I have them winning the Serie A, and I think the Juventus are back. I think the Juventus that are going to fight for trophies domestically and abroad is back. I don't think they're going to win the Champions League, but I do think that they're going to be a very difficult team to break down. And I'm particularly keen to see how they face Pep Guardiola's Manchester City.
That will be a very interesting game, absolutely, between the coaches more than anything else. But if we talk about Juventus's weaknesses, looking at the Champions League in particular, more so than the Serie A, I think inexperience is undoubtedly, for me, the big one. Champions League experience is absolutely huge. It doesn't matter how good you are domestically. The Champions League is a whole new ball game. With that, when that anthem plays before the game, being able to handle the traveling of going to big stadiums around Europe with the crowds and the bright lights at night is absolutely huge. And do the maths yourself, guys. Have a look at Juventus's starting 11, or look at their squad in general. Have a look at how many games these players have played in the Champions League. They've hardly played any. There's very few exceptions of players with decent Champions League experience. The likes of Danilo, Arthur Melo, probably the two biggest exceptions, and they're not even starters. Arthur's not going to even play, and Danilo is not really somebody that's in the ideas and plans of the coach, Thiago Motta. So Juventus it takes time to build up experience, and I think that is why Juventus, that is definitely going to count against Juventus quite a lot in the Champions. If it counts against them in the group stage when there's that enthusiasm and the teams are a little bit weaker, but I think definitely later on in the competition, once you get to the knockout stages and strategy and when the game's on the knife edge and when you're put under pressure and the game is one goal either way, and you're defending a lead, or you're whether to chase or whether to hold, that kind of thing. That is where experience comes in, and that is going to definitely, without a doubt, is going to is going to play against Juventus. But that's okay. That's to be expected. That's not something that we should really criticise them later on in the line. But I think that is definitely the biggest weakness, is the lack of experience.
That is true.
Did you want to come?
Yeah.
Did you want to come on that?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. But that comes in play in the latter stages, in the knockout stages. I think in the league stages, I think they, like I said, I have them on somewhere on 6 wins, 1 draw, which brings them 18, 19 points. So I have them finishing in the top 8, and I think that will also give them a little bit of an advantage to not play that extra game and perhaps even be seeded in the round last 16. So no, I have Juve, Milan, and Inter reaching a quarterfinal. I even have Juve as a potential dark horse finalist. I don't think they're going to win it, but if everything falls in place, because no, I do. I think this is a very tricky side. This is a very, very tricky side to play against, and they are very balanced. I look at that squad. I don't really see very many weaknesses. I see a team that has a very clear identity and players that suit that identity with the right draw. And if with Vlahovic becoming the player that Juventus paid for him to become, which I think he will, I see them. They can go really deep in this competition. I really think so.
Yeah, listen, I think Vlahovic is definitely a key one, because we've just seen since he's joined from Juventus, since he joined from Fiorentina, pushing on 3 years now, he hasn't been a player that we expected and that everybody expected him to become. And he's shown flashes here and there, and even so far this season, he started decently, but then we saw the Vlahovic that's disappointed everyone in the last game against Roma. We saw a Vlahovic that was terrible, and Vlahovic, we need to see consistency. We need to see him raise that level consistently and become that striker, because if not, that could be a potential weakness in this Champions League, in that Juventus may not have a striker that they can rely on. And also, as I've said before, I think actually one of Motta's weaknesses, even during that special Bologna season, was that sometimes his possession can be a little bit sterile, in the sense that they're so good at dominating. His teams are so good at dominating possession, keeping the ball, but they don't overexert themselves in terms of throwing men forward, throwing men into the box, overloading, overcommitting themselves, because Motta is always very pragmatic and wary about leaving gaps in case if they lose the ball, then the other team can transition and counter and score. And that is why Juventus, or why Motta teams are so good defensively. It's not because of their teams. In fact, if you look at Juventus's team on paper, it's actually quite weak. Like, it's on paper, this is very very good Juventus team. And so it depends how you look at it. If you look at it on paper, you'd say, well, actually, a lot of these big Champions League teams should be able to get at Juventus. Even Serie A teams should be able to get at Juventus. But the midfield is so strong, will protect that and Motta's style of play. So I actually think that it could be from an offensive point of view, where let's say some questions need to be answered, and Vlahovic is certainly one of those. There's no doubt about that.
That's exactly what I meant when I said that in strengths, that I said that Thiago Motta, the Juventus are structurally, defensively very sound. It's exactly that point, that they are more than the sum of their parts. And that is because Thiago Motta will have them set up to be as such. And that's why I think that Juventus I have them as a dark horse as a potential finalist, not to win it, but they could if the draw is right and they're they don't have any injuries.
To lose to Inter in the final, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, a Derby d'Italia Champions League, that would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? But no, seriously, I think they would. They are strong, and also like Thiago Motta has this ability, I think we can say so far in his career, to get young players to believe in themselves. Even the fact that they don't have experience doesn't bother them. I mean, the way that he's gotten youngsters to explode now for almost 3 seasons, if we count Spezia, he puts the young players in such a he builds a system and has the young players, inexperienced players, playing in a system where they find themselves in situations that they're comfortable with, that they're used to handling, and so their inexperience doesn't get exposed. That's what he's really good at, and that's what I really like about Thiago Motta.
Yeah, he's good at getting. He's good at getting players to grow fast.
And he does that. He does that, in my opinion, by putting them creating a system where he puts them in situations where they're comfortable, where even though they don't lack experience of the biggest games, it's a football game. It's a situation these players find themselves comfortable in and are used to being in terms of tactically on the pitch. That's what I think he's very good at.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Prediction then. Group stage. I mean, you've already kind of said.
Yeah.
If they do what you say they do, then they're going to finish in the top 8. I'm going to say they qualify. I think 16th to 24th for Juventus of experience. I can see them maybe drawing a few of these games that you expect to win, and there may be been a little bit of some teething issues, but I do expect them to qualify. I'm not going to ask you again because you've already said you think top 8. Overall, I'm going to listen. I hope that they overachieve. I'm going to say last 32 or last 16 because I do think that the lack of experience will come. Again, it depends on the draw. It really does. It depends on the draw who Juventus get, and I hope to be pleasantly surprised. Based on quality and based on Motta's qualities, I think they're better than last 32 or even last 16 potentially.
Exactly.
But I do think that lack of experience, realistically, they've hardly played in the Champions League, any of them. I really do think that will be important in the new year.
No, it will be in decisive moments, but I do think that people need to understand one thing. You being a Juventino, I'm being an Interista. When we do these predictions, when we do these analyses, we're not talking fandom. We're talking analysis based on, like we've explained, why and how. And that's why I believe in this Juve as much. I don't support them, but I do think that they are going to be...
Really? Really?
I mean, it's just... No, because I'm tired of this ridiculous discussion where people conflate fandom with analysis and punditry, and it's really annoying. Like when you say that you don't believe in something, it doesn't mean you're anti anything or pro anything. It's just based on, as I've explained and you explained, why we believe in them or not, and then we'll have to see how it plays out. But I do think that Juventus are solid. I do think Juventus have started a cycle that will be a winning and successful cycle, and this is just the beginning of that. And there's, when you go through purgatory and hell and there's belief, you air out the windows, you create something new. This creates enthusiasm all around the club, from the fans to the boardroom to the dressing room, and I think that should not be discounted.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Let's move to Atalanta now. First of all, their opponents, they have Arsenal, Shakhtar Donetsk, Celtic, Stuttgart, Young Boys, Real Madrid, Sturm Graz, and Barcelona away with. So first of all, I would say pretty good draw, I think, for Atalanta. If we're looking at the really tough games at Arsenal, Real Barcelona, but if you look at the other 5 games, very winnable. I mean, Shakhtar Donetsk away, I don't think that will even be an away game. I think that will be neutral territory still. Then we've got Celtic at home, Stuttgart away, and I don't think Stuttgart are as strong this season as they were last season. Young Boys away and Sturm Graz at home. I mean, 5 pretty winnable games, really. So again, I think a good draw for Atalanta.
I agree. I think it's a good draw, and I think they should, exactly for the reasons you said. I think it's 5 very winnable games, and then if you can, Barcelona away is not impossible. Real Madrid at home, they can beat anyone at home, Atalanta, because at home they are one of the best teams in all of Europe, and they've got Real Madrid and Arsenal at home, so it wouldn't surprise me if they won both of them, really, because they are that good at home. They are a completely different animal at home. They really, really put you through the centrifuge when you play them at home. It's like you get dizzy. They are such a difficult side at home. So look, it's I think it's a good draw, and I think they should qualify. They really should qualify.
Yeah, I agree. I was hoping you'd speak for longer because the window cleaner's around and making a noise. So apologies if anyone. I mean, there's just been a massive thunderstorm. Why do I need a window cleaner to come around now? Yes.
The
So,
great thunderstorm of 2024 in Bedford.
yeah, exactly. Right. So the Atalanta squad, the players that are not in the squad, Scamacca, of course, injured with his ACL. Sulemana out, surprisingly out. Sulemana actually, and Scalvini is actually in List B, somewhat surprisingly. He's still expected to miss the group stage though, but I guess that's probably quite positive actually. To again, I've said group stage there. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep
League
saying that.
stage. We just
The
have to
league
say league
stage,
stage.
yes, the league
Yeah,
stage.
the league stage.
He's probably. I mean, that's a positive. That suggests that actually they feel like he could be back. Maybe even like because the the league stage is still going on in January. So he might be. Maybe he'll be back for those games. So those are the players that are out. Atalanta probable 11, which should be flashing on your screen now for those that are watching. Karnaseki in goal. The back three, the strongest back three, Jim City, Hien, and Kolasinac, although Jim City will first group game. Then the wing backs, Bellanova and Ruggeri. This is a 3-4-2-1. And then the centre midfielders, Derun and Elis. Then the two attacking midfielders, De Ketelaere and Lukman, and then Retegui as the striker. So strengths and weaknesses, Nima. What are Atalanta's strengths?
They are a seasoned European football team who has won in Europe and knows how to play these games, difficult games away, and knows how to win difficult games away. They know how to win at home. They have, they have European pedigree. I mean, if we're talking experience matters, reigning Europa League champions, we're a minute away from going to the final of the Champions League, if you ask me, against PSG during COVID season, continuously in Europe, know how to balance league and European competition, have a very clear identity, a clear attacking identity, a difficult team to play against, and they have depth. Quadrado, Zaniolo, Zappacosta, when Scamacca comes back, Scalvini, they have options, which is crazy. And they'll never be favorites against the biggest in the Europe, but they're no mugs. And they continue to overperform time and time again. And it's they are just such a well-run club on and off the pitch.
Yeah, not too much to add on that. I mean, I agree with everything you said. They've got good experience now. I mean, they got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League in 2020 when they were, seconds away from reaching the semis, where they would have played Leipzig, which means they good chance they could have got to the final.
Well, that's
that
why
year.
I say they would. That's why I say they would have gone to the final that year, because I think they would have dominated Leipzig.
Yeah. Their football's very conducive to playing well in Europe. We've seen the man-to-man marking system seems to work really well in Europe, and we saw that with Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp just got out-coached completely tactically. Didn't have the answer to Gasperini with Liverpool last season at Anfield, which I mean, they've won twice at Anfield in the last few years. I mean, how many
It's just
teams?
crazy.
How many teams have won once at Anfield? I mean, Atalanta are in a small group of teams. I think there's only about a handful of teams that have won twice at Anfield in Europe in history, and Atalanta are one of them. And then again, just to further your point, they showed last season that they are capable of beating anyone in Europe. I mean, the run on the way to the Europa League final, beating Liverpool, beating Leverkusen, unbeaten in the final, beating Marseille, who are really a Champions League quality team. I know they're not in Europe at all this season, but they are a Champions League team really. And then Sporting Lisbon, who they played 4 times last season in the group stage, and then they knocked them out in the knockouts as well. And they've always got the better of them. They were unbeaten against them. So yeah, Atalanta are even with I mean, they've been handicapped by the injuries and the lost players, which we'll come on to now. I still think that they will do well, I think, in Europe. Let's talk about the weaknesses, though. They are, though, on paper, there's no doubt about it, they are significantly weaker than last season. I mean, injuries really have killed them in terms of having that potential to go on and win something big, even bigger than the Europa League, challenging to win that Scudetto, which we discussed at the end of last season. We thought they had the potential. They even spoke about it openly. Gasperini spoke about it. Percassi, the owners, they spoke about it. They said, we want to go forward now. We've got the team, the squad. And they can just build on it with a good transfer campaign. They weren't far away from being in that position to challenge, and they've had a horror summer. Really unlucky with the injuries. They've lost Scalvini, their best defender, to an ACL. They've lost Scamacca, their main man in attack, to an ACL. They've lost probably their best overall player, their best midfielder, Koopmeiners, to Juventus. So they've had, the heart of their team ripped out from them. So unfortunate, so unlucky. As a result, the team is weakened. So we know that has to be acknowledged for sure.
For sure, but they have Samajic, they have Zaniolo, they have options. I mean, they brought in Retegui, they brought in Cuadrado to give them experience. I mean, this is, yes, they are weaker, but they have done everything they could to mitigate that. And the Lookman situation, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens there. I think that he will be reintegrated, and this is his last season with them. But they will try to, I think both club and player will kind of let bygones be bygones, focus on the season, have a good season, and then in the summer say goodbye. But they have handled their adversities as a club really, really well. And they play, like you say, a football that pays dividends in Europe, more than it does in the Serie A. So they are, and I think that nobody wants to face them. I think anyone looks at that and go, "Oh God, not them." They've become that team that nobody wants to play in Europe, because they chase the life out of you and they never give up. And you can be 2-0 up against them, but they can score 3 goals on you in 10 minutes. Like, that's the thing about them. They are always an attacking threat, even if they are defensively somehow, sometimes very solid. Sometimes very weak. And that has been an issue, especially this season. I think they were ripped apart by Inter. I mean, completely ripped apart.
Yeah, lost 4-0. The defense has been really bad so far this season. I think that is a potential weakness or a definite weakness for them, especially with Scalvini out and the defenders that they've brought in. We'll see Koisanu, the lad from Leverkusen. I don't know as much about him. I'm not sure about their defense, to be honest with you. And I think part of that is also down to the central midfield, because Ederson, who's a fantastic player, obviously they've lost Koopmeiners, probably the tactically most complete central midfielder in the whole of Serie A. They've lost him, which is a huge loss. In this actual central midfield of 2-1, when it's Ederson and De Roon, that's fine. It's compact. They can do everything that's needed of them. The problem is, because of these defensive problems, because of so many defensive absentees, with Scalvini being out, with Jim City being out, with other Kolasinac gets very injury prone as well, is that De Roon often goes into playing at centre back. Now, when he goes to play at centre back, they don't have anyone else that can come in at centre midfield. And that's a mistake that they've made in the transfer market. They should have gone out and signed another central midfielder, like a real central midfielder, not, as is often the case, is Marco Pasalic, who's really an attacking midfielder, plays as a central midfielder next to Ederson and leaves them way too open. And that's one of the reasons why that they've struggled so much this season defensively, is that centre midfield is too open and doesn't protect the back four enough. It's something that is a bit of an issue for them.
I think a way round that is Samajic, Ederson playing together in a double pivot. That's something I want to see. I want to see him try that and see what happens there. I think there's a way, Gasperini's identity is attack is the best defense. So I think with Pasalic, I just don't think he's got the tactical and technical intelligence to play in central midfield in that role. I do think Samajic does, because I think he's incredibly skillful. He's incredibly technical. He has great vision, fantastic passer, And I really want to see Samardzic and Edison play together in a double pivot.
My doubts whether Samardzic can play in a midfield too, to be honest. But I hope you can. Prediction time though for Atalanta group stage. First of all, they will qualify. I'm pretty confident that. I think the draw is good. I see a lot of people predicting the top 8, including bookmakers. Usually quite accurate on these things. I wonder whether they're basing that a lot on last season's team though. I would say 9th to 24th to finish, and they qualify from 9th to 24th. And I do think 9th to 16th is doable based on the draw. What do you say?
I have them league-wise exactly like Inter, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere there. I think they have a chance to finish in the top 8, but I think it's a bit of a difficult ask, given the games and given how the others are, the other teams that will also fight for top 8. I think you can't demand anything of them. I think 7, 8, 9, 10 is where I can ask of them, and I think that's where they will be.
Okay, and overall, where do you see them finishing? How far can they go?
Quarterfinal. I think when Gasperini's pre-seasons training usually pays off towards the end of from February and onwards, and it does that time and time again. His teams are crazy fit when everyone else is tired, and that's why I think that a quarterfinal minimum for them is what I kind of expect from them. With a good draw, who knows? I mean, look, I think we both would love it if they won it. I mean, seriously, like, even if Inter and Milan don't win it, I mean, I would love it if Atalanta won the Champions League. Like, I mean, come on. How magical wouldn't that be?
Champions League. That would be nice to see, wouldn't it? It's been so long.
It would be magical.
Yeah. No,
magical.
I think last 16 is doable for them. I think quarterfinal could be possible as well with a good draw. I wouldn't rule that out. Again, the draw is everything really. It really depends on the draw. Let's finish off then for the final Serie A team and the shock team in the Champions League this season from Serie A. I mean, who could have possibly predicted this? Is Bologna, who had that magical season, very Thiago Motta last season. So let's have a look at their opponents. They are Shakhtar Donetsk, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Monaco, Lille, Benfica, Borussia Dortmund, and Sporting Lisbon. First of all, I mean, just ignoring kind of like Bologna, what we think they could do. We'll get to that after. But I mean, the draw itself, I think is quite comparable to Juventus's draw in that there's one really tough team. In this case, it's Liverpool. In Juventus's case, it was Manchester City. And then the rest, there's no real gimmies. There's no gimmies. And not that I would call any team a gimme for Bologna, but you know what I mean. Like, there's no real really weak teams in this group. I think they've been a little bit unlucky with who they picked out from the bottom seeded pots. They could have they were unlucky there not to get a really easy team from that pot. But they're all teams of all kind of like middling to good level, other than Liverpool. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Benfica. I mean, look at these away games: Liverpool away, Aston Villa away, Benfica away, Sporting away. These are difficult away games. It's
difficult to like cauldrons.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Anfield European nights. Villa Park, Benfica at the Stadium of Light. I mean, no, and Sporting raining. No. It's I got to be honest with you. I think I wonder even if they finish if they qualify. Got to be honest with you.
Saying that like it's a surprise. Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll come to that after. There's
for me, I look at this and I think it's given their everything is relative. It is similar to Juventus, but in the sense that Juventus are way better than Bologna. Bologna are a mid-table Serie A side now, and I think they're going to be. I think it would be an achievement if they even qualified. A huge achievement if they qualified. I think there's a chance they could be the whipping boys.
Yeah, I love how level-headed you are about it. I'm going to be quite matter of fact after. So yeah, let's talk about the squad and the team first. So the squad, quite a few interesting players left out actually.
Yeah,
Jesper Karlsson, uh, Di
crazy.
Silvestri, Ilic, Cambiaghi,
Injured.
but that is because he got an ACL. El Azuzi and Benjamin Dominguez. Surprising players included though, Lewis Ferguson, who I didn't expect to be included because he'd done his ACL last season. I thought surely won't be included in the league phase. And Samuel Liling Jr. is also in after arriving in from Aston Villa on loan. The probable 11 or the best 11, not easy, but I mean Vincenzo Italiano, new coach for Bologna, taking over from Thiago Motta. We're looking at a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, depending on how you want to read it. So Skorupski in goal, probably Posh at right back, Miranda at left back, Bukema and Luchumi at centre back. Then midfield, I think Marco Fabian, Freuler, Abisha, and then on the wings, Orsolini and Doi, and then I'm going to say Dalinga or Castro in attack. I mean, if we look at the strengths of Bologna, trying to be as respectful as possible to them. If we were talking about their strengths from last season, I could have spoken for a long time. But you look at them now, I think they've got some interesting young players. Like Ndoye was one of the players who I thought could really break out and explode this season in Serie A because he had a really fantastic Euro, Switzerland, and he's got those raw qualities, the pace, the dribbling. He's very direct. He frightens defenders. You know, especially as Bologna might be playing a more well. I mean, it's Italiano, so they try and have possession, but they are going to have. They're going to come under that can hit teams on the break. I think Ndoye it could be somebody that could be successful. I like Fabian as well. He seems to be growing quite nicely, and I think he
Yeah.
can't be that far away from an Italy call up, Fabian.
Mm.
And Castro as
No.
well is quite an interesting player as well. So I mean, they've got some good young players, and I also think that the Swiss block, the Swiss guard, let's say, are a good are good. We saw how well Switzerland did in the Euros. Ndoye again, Abisha, good player. Freuler, very underrated, had a very underrated career. They can definitely bring something in terms of experience. Those latter two in the Champions League, so they do have something there. It's not like they've got nothing to offer.
Absolutely, they do. They have some experience. The Swiss guard, as you so brilliantly call them, together with Fabian and Orsolini, who always comes good for them. These are their strengths. But other than that, and also the fact that they have a coach who's reached European finals, albeit it's the Conference League. He plays a football that pays off in Europe. But I just think they are qualitatively, structurally, way out of their league.
I have to say I agree. Sadly, if we talk about the weaknesses now, I mean, let's be honest, player for player, they've been gutted. I mean, first of all, the coach. I mean, Italiano is for a team like Bologna is pretty much is pretty. They're pretty lucky to have got a coach like Italiano for a team of their level. So they've got a good coach. So it's not a weakness, but they've lost Motta, who was without Motta, there's no way this. But even with the players that they had, there's no way this Bologna team gets in the Champions League. I mean, he was everything for them. The way that he got those players to grow, the way he got them to play. I mean, it was magical. I mean, they were second in Serie A for possession, which is just incredible for a small team like Bologna. So Motta's a huge, even if Italiano, I think is a very good replacement. But it's the players that they've lost in the squad. I mean, they've lost Joshua Zirkzee, who was a monster for Bologna in attack. Calafiori, who was probably the best centre back in Serie A, he's gone to Arsenal now. We saw in the Euros, one of the best defenders in the Euros, magnificent. They lost Makers, who went back to Milan, is now gone to Roma, and of course they lost Lewis Ferguson, who was their goal scorer midfielder. So I mean, they've lost their four best players and their coach from last season, and they've lost Christensen as well. Christiansen, the left back, who I actually quite like. I think he's a good player. They've lost half their team, and the players that have come in are way off the quality of the players that left. That they're just not, and they've lost one of those as well to an ACL already, Cambiaghi. So it's the team is being weakened, so shattered. We have to be perfectly honest here, and when you add to that the fact that we had a very difficult start to the season in Serie A. I mean, 2 points from 3 games, and there are no easy games in their group. Maybe Shakhtar, the first game at home, is the one game where I think they got a chance to potentially win that game against Shakhtar. Apart from that, I wouldn't be betting on them in any of the games. If I'm a gambler, I wouldn't be confident of them beating any of the other teams, if I'm honest.
I have nothing more to add. I think they are the whipping boys of this tournament. Among the whipping boys in this tournament, they'll finish towards the bottom half, and yeah, that's all I've got to say. I think it would take something miraculous for them to qualify.
I agree. I think they're going to go out. There's no doubt about that. They'll finish near the bottom of the 36-team table, maybe 30th, 31st.
Something like
at
that.
Best,
yeah.
At best, probably, to be honest with you.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Very, very difficult, unfortunately. To finish off, let's do predictions, overall predictions of the tournament as a whole. So not just the Italian teams. We'll start off with the big one. Who is going to win the Champions League this season, Nima?
I can't get past Real Madrid, and I just feel Carletto's building a dynasty there, man. Like it looks so damn good. Already it looks so damn good. And I don't know, Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, I can't choose between them.
I can't choose between Real Madrid and Man City because I'm always finding arguments for the other teams not winning it. Arsenal, I still don't think they're quite ready. Yeah. I think they're ready to win the Premier League, but maybe not quite ready to win the Champions League. Liverpool, the same. I don't think that they're ready to win the Champions League. Bayern Munich, I cannot see Bayern Munich winning the Champions League with Vincent Kompany as their coach. I'm sorry, I can't. And PSG, I don't think there's enough quality in that team, like superstar quality in that team now that they've lost Mbappe as well. I think it's out of Real Madrid and City. I think with City, what could potentially harm them is if they get this points penalty, this big points penalty in the Premier League. Even though it's not related to the Champions League, it could have the knock-on effect of derailing the season. But then it could be the other way. It could be that they just focus on the Champions League. It's also probably going to be Pep Guardiola's last season, so maybe this is, he wants to go out winning the Champions League, and they focus it all on the Champions League, especially if the points penalty is so heavy that they're out. So it could actually end up playing in their favour. I think it really depends. It depends with the appeal. They'll probably appeal against the sentence. The sentence will probably come in the new year, like December, January time. Then they'll appeal it. I don't know when that appeal will be finalised. It will have to be by the end of the season. Maybe it'll be. So it's kind of a bit of an unknown. But I think Man City or Real Madrid. Inter, there's a possibility. Inter.
They're dark. We're talking dark horse.
Yeah.
Inter are dark horse. Surprise, But the favorites, City, Real, and I know Vincent Kompany is not the greatest coach, but he does have a fantastic team. The quality of Bayern Munich is unbelievable. And at some point, it has to pay off.
Sometime Harry Kane has to win a trophy. Trophy. Best player. Who you got for best player?
I think it's going to be. Take your pick from Real Madrid, man. Mbappe, Vinny. That midfield. Who? Take your pick. It's just littered with quality. And then you look at City, and they're littered with quality. I think whoever of those teams that win it is going to be. I couldn't tell you, but we all know the names, so it's just ridiculous for me to repeat them. But they just have so much.
Junior, I think, will win the Ballon d'Or. That's what I understand, and I think he's the best player in the world right now. But if I'm going for a little bit of a field pick, I've loved what I've seen of Luis Diaz so far from Liverpool. He's just taken his game onto a superstar level. From what we've seen in the early stages, still small sample size. He could be someone that could really light up this tournament. If I'm going a little bit left field, top scorer. It's hard to look past Erling Haaland for Manchester City, I think.
For me, it's Kylian Mbappe. I think it's Kylian Mbappe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they work that dynamic with Mbappe and Vinny and get them all playing together. So that's why I might have a little bit of a doubt there. Breakout star, who you got? I guess we should go for an Italian one, shouldn't we?
Yeah,
really?
I was going to say, I mean, could it be, I mean, when you say breakout, I mean, we in Italy know all about Twin Cup miners. We all know about, so they're not a breakout, but I don't think there's very many people in Europe who know about Twin Cup miners or know about, those kinds of players, or Ruggeri, who I absolutely love, or Bellanova. Like, I think it's going to be someone like that that's going to become
Or Yildiz.
Yildiz for sure. Yildiz for sure. That he's really impressed me. So yeah.
Yeah, I like all of those. I can't really pick one from Inter because they're all quite established.
Yeah.
Maybe Bisek, and I don't think he'll play enough
Nah.
to really be a breakout. Bologna, no. And Milan, can we pick out a breakout player from Milan?
Well, you can't say that Theo Mignon and Leao are breakout players at this point, can you?
Yeah, Reinders maybe. Reinders
is a good shout. Reinders is a good shout. Reinders is a good shout. I like that.
Yeah, and if he got a chance, Liberali as well. I think has maybe not the Champions League, but in Serie A, I think he. When you're a team in crisis, as Milan are right now, the chances of the youth players getting a chance just decrease even more, and that is a problem than any other league football. As soon as there's just any chance of pressure being on, that's it. It's all for the young inexperienced players, and unfortunately that could probably be the case. Flop club. Who's going to be the flop club? I mean, this has to be a big team.
Barcelona. Barcelona are going to flop, I think.
I think so. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a big. I don't like that.
They've started really well in La Liga. They've won all their games in La Liga.
I like Hansi Flick, but no, I just don't. Yeah.
I usually go for the manager in these things. I'm going to go for Bayern Munich just because company. I'm just
You see, I like Hansi Flick. I think he's a great coach. But that club is such. I mean, they've bought good players and they look good, but I don't know, man.
I'm looking at the biggest teams. I'm thinking I can't make an argument for Arsenal, City, Liverpool. They're going to qualify. I can't make an argument for Real Madrid. Maybe Real Madrid. Who knows? Maybe Mbappe and Vinny doesn't work and they don't qualify. I don't know.
No. When I say flop club, Barcelona are going to qualify, but
flop club talking last 32, aren't we? Exit last 32.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I mean, can you see any of the big clubs not qualifying? That's what I mean.
No, that's what I mean. I can't. I think they all will, but I do think that Barcelona could get knocked out early. I do think that. And Bayern Munich with company, that is absolutely a possibility for sure. But I don't see Liverpool, Arsenal, City, PSG, Real Madrid getting knocked out early. I just don't see that.
No, so I mean to get knocked out early, you're probably going to have to lose at least 4 of your games, 4 or 5, or not win 4 or 5 of your games. Can't see that happening to these big clubs when they're playing against teams like Slovan Bratislava and Red Star.
No, the gap in quality, unfortunately, is so big. It's not like it was in the 90s when I was there when I watched my IFK Gothenburg beat Milan, Barcelona, Manchester United, Galatasaray, and so on. That doesn't happen anymore. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unless
the final
unless Atalanta go on and win the whole damn thing.
one guaranteed prediction, though, that I can give you is that whichever team is playing against an English team, whether it's Real Madrid or whether it's Slovan Bratislava, none of that team is getting
It's
into
going
the
to get
English
into the English team. Yeah.
that we can guarantee.
I can guarantee you that.
Okay,
he doesn't even get into the Chelsea team, does he?
Yeah, later rubbish. Later rubbish. Okay, right. Let's leave it at that. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening and for watching. We will be back with a full show on Monday for a review of the weekend Serie A action. And we do also have some previews, some individual match previews of a few of the Italian teams' match day one games in the Champions League. We've done an individual preview on Milan against Liverpool, on Manchester City, Inter, and on Atalanta against Arsenal. So those will be going out. They'll be on our YouTube page and on the podcast apps as well. They're just kind of which we're probably going to do a few more of this season. But that's all for this show. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for listening. Next time, ciao.